Welcome to episode 2 of the lecture. We're gonna go really fucking fast. Handout. Oh, that was handout 5. That actually was the big thing. Unless no, okay. We're gonna start with episode 1. Wow, you guys went over a fucking lot in a month. I'm not gonna lie. This is a very intense class, but I think you can do it. Atlantic revolutions. My laundry's ready. Okay, I'm gonna skim through some stuff. I'm gonna try to condense all of these into another half hour. Okay, so the Atlantic revolutions. Enlightenment philosophy, concept, natural rights. So that was around the time late in Catherine the Great's reign when Enlightenment philosophy. So this is right as America had a revolution. France was having their revolution. So all these fucking ideas were coming, specifically from the direction of the Atlantic, because Russia's here, at least from my perspective. If you're facing this way, Russia's here, France is here, U.S. is an ocean away. This is the Atlantic. France is on the Atlantic. America's on the Atlantic. Atlantic revolutions are all these Enlightenment ideas pulling up. Stages of the French Revolution. Okay, so I don't know how much he really wants you to know about this, but if it's a lot, so Louis XIV. Anything you need to know about King, you're going to be learning about King Louis. King Louis XIV was rich as fuck, grandiose as fuck, had all these gold decorations fucking everywhere, and France funded the American Revolution, and they won, and Britain was fucked for a little while, so that's good for them, but they need money. And France is like, hey, America, can you pay? And America's like, give me 5 years. And so it's also really fucking cold, and the country's not producing a lot of food, and so people are poor and angry. And so the States General, what they try to do is they try to have a Senate. They'll still give the king power, but they're gonna work together and say, hey, this is what we want, can you make that happen? And you can still have your freedom, you can still do your own thing. And so they create inspired by the Declaration of Independence, they have the Declaration of the Rights of Man and the Citizen. I didn't know those last two words, but I'm gonna keep going a little bit. Lafayette, I think that's Marquis de Lafayette, helped in the revolution. So they write this whole little thing, and they're like, hey, the king, you can be in power, but the people, we have rights. We have rights to food and to do what we want a little bit. And so the king is like, no thanks. And so people get really angry and they riot, and eventually the king's troops shoot, and then eventually people are like, why the fuck do we have a king at all? Let's go fucking kill the king. And that's why these ideas are a threat to Russia, why Russia unliberalized under the guy we talked about, Ivan the Fourth. Not Ivan the Fourth, I'm sorry. Alexander the Third. My bad. Alex is the second guy. Because talking about killing a king and you are a king, that's not good news for you. Radical republicanism. They kill the king because he's an asshole, and fuck it, and they think that their Senate can do better. But people in the Senate are arguing, hey, if we're going to reform a country, how the fuck do we do it? We can build whatever the fuck we want. The American Revolution was a bit easier because we already had a bit of Congress, and then there was a king where it's like, no king, Congress is in charge. But to the French, they had no one. They just created a Senate, and they're like, okay, should we just get rid of every fucking hierarchy? Like, fuck the king, fuck religion? Should we say fuck religion? Fuck anyone that likes the king. Fuck that too. And so they're always fighting. So the Reign of Terror is under the guy that we talked about, Robespierre, and he loves beheading people, and eventually he kills so many people get pissed at him. The Jacobins, that's just the name of his squad, his boys, named after a guy named Jacob. Long story, but mass arrests, executions. Eventually, it fizzles down, and Napoleon happens. France is basically in a civil war, but it's not like two sides fighting. It's like there's a million sides. It's really complicated. You can get a fucking major in it if you wanted to, but basically, France one more time is like, hey, we really need fucking money. We're blowing up our country. America, can you pay? And America's like, oh shit, no, because I'm pretty sure that when we signed the contract, we owed it to the king, not to France. So you guys miscalculated on that. So France was kind of pissed at us for a little while. To go through that one more time. France ran out of money. Fuck. Running low on food. Fuck. People are angry, and the angry people protest and they get shot. And so that would make me angry. So I'd say the king's an asshole. And then I would get shot. And so let's go kill the king and his wife. So we do that. And we're like, hey, America, can you pay us now? King's dead, no money. Fuck. Turns out the lady we just killed, the wife, Marie Antoinette, she's Austrian, so Austria's pissed, and Austria is declaring war because they have a king, and that we just killed our king. They don't want those ideas to spread. So this sucks. And so some French people are like, maybe a king wasn't that bad, because now we're all chopping each other's head off. And so some dude named Napoleon shoots those guys with cannons and say, I'm in charge, and I'm popular, and I'm going to go fight Austria, and wins. I'm going to go fight every country on Europe and win. And then he wins for a long time, and then fails, and then loses, and then gets sent to an island. And then he comes back from the island, says, I'm going to rule France again, and then he loses, gets exiled to an island in the middle of buttfuck nowhere, and dies. So, revolutionary dilemmas. These are some questions that they were talking about. How far to expand political rights? Like we were talking about, what groups of people, like, you know, everyone deserves rights, but do smart people deserve more rights? Do dumb people deserve less? You know, security and privacy and convenience are kind of complicated. And so, like, do we want to be totally free, like have no laws? Well, then people are going to rape each other and stab each other in the streets. So I guess we need some laws. So this is really strange. Now there's other guys that aren't even French, like moving here. Should we have French people have more laws? And so this is a lot of ideas. The perils of Bonapartism, Napoleon Bonaparte, this is his last name. They're like, hey, we just killed the king, but now this guy's called himself Emperor of France, and we're all happy. Isn't that a bit weird? And it was a bit weird. Proto-socialist. So this is, the French Revolution is one of the biggest things to happen in human history because all of Europe exploded into revolution within the next 100 years. Russia, all of Europe, except England. Proto-socialist. Proto meaning before, socialist meaning like, you know, sharing, socialism. Before the socialist word was written down, some ideas were already being formed. Karl Marx said, hey, let's go share. This is what you need to read about. The Hegelian thesis. Friedrich Hegel, German philosopher. Remember this earlier if you paid attention? It's okay if you didn't. When I was saying the Russians view history like a pendulum. Slavery and then feudalism. It's a step in the right direction, but it still sucks. Capitalism, step in the right direction, still sucks. Socialism, step in the right direction, still not that good. Communism is where they want to be. So that's kind of what the dialectical, the DI being the Latin root for like two. Also, you might be familiar with bi, but dialect being it's a conversation that's going with like one side to the other, one side to the other. And their view of history is a class struggle, where they're like, it's always rich people and the poor people on the bottom, which makes sense. And the poor people get a little bit of rights, and then they get trapped, and they need to fight for their rights to get bigger and bigger. And so slavery, and then feudalism, capitalism, but they still believe under capitalism people are oppressed. First international working assassin. What the fuck does assassin mean? Okay, this guy's an anarchist. Doesn't really matter, just know that prior to the revolution, philosophy was hot news again, just like ancient Greece, and people were just thinking, and this guy's like, what if we have an anarchy? Not anarchy being crazy, but we don't have anyone in charge. We're all totally equal. It's like democracy, but more intense. After Napoleon, France loses, and then they lose a war to Germany in 1870. And so protesters occupy Paris, and they're called the Commune. They were communist, and it lasted 1 year. So, okay, hopefully this is helping. Let me run through that all one more time. This is debating. Do we give everyone rights? How many rights should we give? Should we tolerate people that don't agree, or should we just fucking kill them and get security? Early socialist ideas. What if we share? Revolutions of 1848. After France, revolutions all across Europe. Doesn't really matter where were happening. Okay, I guess it kind of matters. Fun fact, happened in Germany. And a lot of Germans moved to the U.S., making the U.S. the largest ethnic group in history. So that's cool. Principles of Marxism. Study this. Just study this. Marxism, the Marx views history as a class class warfare. Maybe you've heard the term. Like, you can view history through religion and being like, oh, like, the Crusades happened because Christianity didn't like Islam expanding to the Holy Land, and then modern day, like, that's why Muslims are having terrorist attacks. And that's the religious view. The Marxist view is more of a class struggle view. Moving on, the German Socialist Democrats, these guys existed, and they wrote some books. Okay, we're going to go fast as fuck. What has to be done? Okay, so we're taking a step back. Family tree. Decembrist revolt is 100 years. It was like some people protested and got shot and died, and they just wanted some more rights. A lot of this doesn't really seem like it matters. The rise of terroristic tendencies. Okay, you might have to look into some of these, like the murder trial of Sergei Nikhaev. Never heard of him. So I guess ignoring all of the bullet points, let's look at the radical sun. So 1860s, some people were thinking a lot, I guess, and they're like, hey, feudalism is bad, let's do our own thing. Capitalism is okay, but I guess let's just do our own thing. Some people said, let's really do our own fucking thing. Russia is just killing people, and they're killing us, and we're starving, and the king's an asshole. I'm very familiar with the French Revolution. Similar. Fun fact, so you have to know this. World War I is starting. Soldiers very pissed off. Germany is starting to get a little fucked by Russia. They end up winning, and they end up winning because they have a political prisoner. Some dude named Lenin that's hanging out in Russia. He had to run away. And so Germany's like, hey, Lenin, we're just going to send you home. Go make Russia have some internal struggles. And boy, did he. Russian Civil War started, and Russia fell. And everyone who touches Marxism, they have some ideas. Some people are like, let's share more, let's share less. Going back a little bit, Nicholas II, this is the last Tsar. He's part of the Romanov dynasty. Mad show. So he had secret police, Russification, so we talked about everyone speak Russia, but people, now that these ideas of killing a king are getting so popular worldwide, all those lands that Russia conquered are now starting to have their own identities. And the people, when they have their own identities, they're like, yeah, we're the best, like, we settled this land, Russia conquered us, but, like, let's fucking rule ourselves. Also, so I hate Russians. I hate anyone that's not my little tiny subgroup inside Russia. And so anti-Semitic ideas were coming, because now everyone is getting all nationalistic. The Russians are like, fuck those guys, let's kick their ass even more. So they do. Early pogroms. Pogroms is just kind of like killing people, burning their shit down, making them poor. Pogroms are just beating the fuck out of people. So that's why anti-Semitism was getting bigger, because the Jews are like, hey, I like being Jewish. I don't really want to be Russian. And the Russians are like, if you live in my fucking country, you're going to be Russian. Hopefully this is making some sense. Industrialization. Russia for a long time wasn't industrialized. They kind of fell behind because if you notice, Russian ideas aren't really expanding too strongly. They're kind of getting adapted from the West. Like the idea of Enlightenment thinking that was happening during the French Revolution when people are like, fuck a king, took some time to really get to Russia, and that's what's happening now. The Industrial Revolution is taking some time to actually get to Russia. And so Russia is industrializing, and when you industrialize a country, there's not a lot of workers' rights, and so that's why communism really fell through. Like, if you remember in America, we had child workers. It sucked. Let me go a bit faster. Leo Tolstoy. These are nice. Is this the guy that wrote fucking... Hey, pause. I do need to look this up. I'm far from perfect. He did write War and Peace. Wonderful. Okay. Wrote War and Peace. At this time, Russia was actually, right before World War I, they had some industry, they had some ideas. It actually wasn't a shithole. And so art was happening. War and Peace. Some philosophy was actually starting to come out of Russia, such as a guy whose name I forget. Dostoevsky. This guy, you like if you don't learn about him, you will. This guy was mad chill. I won't go down a rabbit hole, but anyways, I'm sorry. I know you want to get this done as soon as I do. They studied symbolism. They had other ideas in their books. They're kind of chill. Russia-Japanese War. This is actually a big deal. Russia. It doesn't really matter how it started, but Russia's like, those Japanese guys are starting to grow. And if you notice, like, the year's 1905, 30 years later, Japan, we would be fighting in World War II. So they're starting to really ramp it up. So Japan's fucking around, conquering some neighbors, and they kind of want some Russian land. And Russia's like, get the fuck out of here. North Korea's my friend. This is before they were fascist, just Northern Korea. Let me back it up. Russia wants warm water ports. North Korea, they can get that. So they say, hey, North Korea, which was just Korea at the time, but they're like, can we build a railroad in the north? And they're like, sure. And then Japan comes in, conquers the south of Korea, and then eventually all of Korea, and Russia's like, okay, can we still have our fucking railroad and build a warm water port? And Japan's like, fuck you, you're a pussy. And so they go to war, and for the first time, a European power loses to natives. Japan wins. Russia loses. They had their whole Baltic fleet. Remember Baltics, those 3 countries? Sail all the way across Europe, down Africa, all the way across Asia, and they fucking explode to Japan, and so Russia has to surrender, and it's very embarrassing. Another reason why people don't like the king is that they lost their first war. So, here we are, last king. They expand along the Chinese border, more people, more soldiers. Anglo-Russian, the great game. So those Turkic peoples, if you remember, let me get a map. Fuck it, Asia, I guess. This'll do. Let me zoom in a little bit. Nice, I can't zoom in. Okay, so watch my cursor. So Russia's right here, and they conquered all these Stan countries. And the British at the time, when they owned India, they also owned Pakistan. And if you notice, they're starting to get a little close to each other. And so they're both rivaling. They both want these countries to trade with them and be under their sphere of influence, which is just kind of like the way Puerto Rico's under our sphere of influence. They're independent, but like not really. If we don't want them to do something, we can just cut their shit immediately. And so if there's oil in one of these areas, Russia can say, hey, only trade with us. We'll pay you good money, but only trade with us. And so India's thinking the same thing, or the British ruling India are thinking the same thing. And so they're both kind of looking at our Iran, and they're like, should we just fucking like conquer? And then they decide to relax, and Afghanistan is the border country between them, so Russia and Britain don't ever go to war. Russia and Britain always think they're going to go to war, but they never really do. They're just both expanding. They're expanding. Over here, like, Japan is friends with the British, and Russia's fought a war with them. And Russia thinks that they're just tripping. It's like a Cold War again. Sino-Japanese War. Japan is fighting China. The Russian leads at Port Arthur. I think this is just... Okay, so... I know this is going to be convoluting, but China is sick of all these countries pulling up, selling them drugs, opium war, and so they decide to rebel, and so they lose. Every major power, US, France, pretty much in like 2 months we kick their ass, they surrender. And so China wanted to close their borders, but Germany has a little port. Russia gets a little port, and it's lit. Russian railroad, this is the thing in Korea I was talking to you about. They build from Moscow to Siberia, and then they go down a little bit. Port Arthur, this is actually foreshadowing. Japan decides to start the war with Russia. They Pearl Harbor them, but in this case they Port Arthur them. I guess that's what we talked about. Bloody Sunday. Okay, people start to protest at like a church, and they get shot. So some people are like, hey, just like the French Revolution, they're like, let's stop getting shot. Let's make a little fucking book saying that we want civil liberties. We want this. We don't want these bullshit taxes. And the rising is quashed. Those guys get shot again. And so to hold on, a little bit, the Tsar is like, okay, if you guys want a Senate so fucking bad, I'll give it to you. Later, he dissolves the Senate, and then the Duma just means Senate. So he dissolves the Duma, and then the people get pissed. They make another Duma, and then they're like, let's be communist, and then they fight, and everything happens. So how long was that? Please be 30 minutes. 20. Okay. So I'm gonna zoom through everything else one more time. So French Revolution. King's an asshole, and we're poor and hungry. Let's kill him. Ah, shit. Who should we put in charge now? Robespierre says we should cut everyone's head off. How about we cut that guy's head off? I love violence. Napoleon is a guy that kills people that like the king, and he fought that war with Austria. We should put him in charge. But now, this is making me think. Now that we're making a new country, who should be in charge? Should French people be the best? Or should we, like... This is a very hard decision, because we also want to colonize people. Should we spread these ideas to our colonies? I don't know. You know, a revolution really makes you think about some stuff. Should we share? And, oh, it looks like our neighbors are also having some revolution. In fact, these revolution ideas, this cool guy named Karl Marx wrote a book about that. So, that's pretty cool. And so, France, you know, Napoleon conquers and then dies and then fucks off. And, France is like, I'm the best in the world. And then they lose to Germany in a little, just 1v1 war. And so, France is having another identity crisis. And so, they say, hey, some people are just, that live in Paris are like, you know, let's try communism. They fail. Foreshadowing. But the idea of communism is still getting popular all across the world. And so, in Russia, the monarchy is slowly but surely starting to fall apart. When feudalism was ended, capitalism was started. It wasn't like like the same way we have capitalism. It was a bit just more like trading, using money, like maybe you can start a business. But in Siberia, like, there's not a lot of economic opportunity. Like, you can't build a McDonald's in the middle of fucking nowhere. You know what I mean? Like, there's not a lot of ways for poor people to get money. Anarchist movement. These guys are like having their own ideas. They're like, you know, what if like there just is no hierarchy? Like, what if we're all just raw ass equal? There's no representative. There's no king. There's no nothing. Lenin is thinking the same thing, and he gets kicked out of Russia, and he's in Germany, and he decides to come back, and that's when the revolution starts. That's where we at. Cool. Nicholas the Tsar, he sees that the monarchy's falling apart, so he's like, okay, I'm gonna have a little bit more of an iron grip on this thing. Let's all go back to being Russian. We'll have our Orthodox, our Christianity that we like, and I'm in charge, and I'm gonna fix everything. And so I'm gonna make a secret police, because I think that's sick. And if you notice, this is the opposite of the French Revolution. The king is in charge, and he's getting more power. He has a secret police, and he's telling everyone, you need to be Russian. You need to speak Russian, be Russian, all that shit. And, you know, Tsar Nicholas seems like an asshole, but it was a lot of his, like, the people in charge, like, his dad's advisors that when Nicholas became Tsar were in charge. And kind of telling him what to do, because he didn't really give a shit. He didn't really want to be king that bad, but he's like, okay, I'll listen to you guys. And so, all these people are saying, I don't want to be Russian. So, yeah, we racist now. Fuck Jewish people according to them. And fuck all other minorities. We're going to start attacking them. But also, I like money, and I like military. So let's industrialize. Let's make some factories. Let's make some fucking sick-ass boats, sick-ass guns. Start killing people. At the same time, art's actually doing good. People, during this period of heightened nationality of, like, you know, the Jewish people want to be Jewish, Russians want to be Russian, the fucking people in Chechnya want to be Chechen. That gives the average Russian person a lot to think about, and so their art is going really good. They're looking back to their roots. They're like, hey, back in the Kievan Rus, that was like, we were pagans, and we were hanging out with Rome, and like, those are some cool art. Like, what if we do some of that now? Like, that's pretty cool. And so, at the same time, they're expanding into Eastern Asia. And, is this? Yeah, wow, okay, this is the same one. So they're expanding into Asia, and they want to get that railroad in Korea, but Japan doesn't like that and bombs them. They Pearl Harbor them. They Port Arthur them. And that's pretty hilarious. that's foreshadowing. And then so Russia loses, people get pretty pissed. The Russians decide to just non-invade Afghanistan, use that as a buffer state. Japan's getting stronger and stronger, and this is kind of scaring Russia, and so Japan explodes them. And eventually people are pissed. They're like, Tsar Nicholas II, you're mad retarded. We're losing war, like that's embarrassing. The entire world is fucking embarrassed that we lost to a non-European country. And people are fucking pissed, and you're trying to take our rights away, the little bit that we have. Can you just give us more rights? Because clearly you don't know what the fuck you're doing. Right here, France and Russia actually become allies temporarily, but doesn't really matter. They both don't like Germany. Germany's in the center, so they become friends. So Tsar Nicholas advisors kills them, and then the people get pissed, and they're like, "Fuck you, asshole. We're gonna make a senate." And that's where we leave off. So I hope this helped a little bit. I know I rapid fire. I was gonna add like little doodles and animations, but I hope you like it.